We will go to 10B, discussion on community engagement liaisons' roles when lobbying for their commissioner's agenda item. Sorry, Commissioner Villalobos.
I'm bringing this item because there was community engagement liaison, a CEL, that was twice asked if they were they present lobbying for an item on the agenda as a resident or as an engagement liaison, and twice the individual said as a resident. So I would just like to get consensus from this commission that our CELs should not be lobbying on our behalf or for themselves if they are on the clock. So considering that the CEL was on the clock getting paid, representing themselves as a resident, but also lobbying for one of their commissioner, for the representative commissioner or vice mayor, I would like to get consensus that going further in the future, that we do not use our liaisons while they're on the clock to do such work. So that's what's on the table, is just get consensus that we would not do that again.
Thank you. While some people are pondering, I can tell, I'm going to share my comments. While I do understand that we have freedom of speech, I was very concerned about having somebody come up before us and in one breath say a resident, next breath, in the breath of being a resident, making comments as the liaison, and making comments claiming to have spoken to other liaisons, as if that person had spoken to all of our liaisons, when that was definitely not the case. I've had a long conversation with the city attorney regarding sunshine law, and while in my opinion, I do not fully agree with the city attorney on this one, the comments brought forth here at the commission as it was public makes it a public conduit. I still feel it has a look of impropriety. I do happen to know that my liaisons were not in communication with Commissioner Gelin's, Vice Mayor Gelin's liaisons. I don't like that out there with the look of saying that liaisons have done something that they have not done. It does not have a full level of truthfulness, which is a concern. So I agree with Commissioner Villalobos regarding the concerns of having a liaison standing up at the podium regarding items and being part, unless they are actually officially part of a presentation, then their comments should only be from them as an actual resident, or we don't require it only to be a resident, but not on the clock, and being specific to their own personal opinions on an item, and being very, very careful about references to others on the dais or other liaisons. So I'm not sure if we need to ask the city attorney, and I think maybe this is where we can go. City attorney, maybe you and your, along with the Human Resources Director, Calhoun, can come up with a proper protocol for our liaisons. I know we have something, but obviously it appears we might have to expand it to make sure it's understood that there's a fine line of doing something improper and the appearance of impropriety, which then reflects on this commission. And remind our liaisons that while they may answer to us individually as their supervisors, they are still employees of the city, and they are subject to any disciplinary items as any employee would be as well. So, Commissioner Placco, your thoughts?
Thank you. Mr. Calhoun, could I ask you a couple questions, please? Thank you.
You're welcome.
When we engage a community liaison, they go through a training program with your office, do they not?
That is correct.
Okay, what are they told as far as talking to other liaisons? Because sunshine could so easily be broken, even by one saying, my commissioner is so annoyed with this program. that could be construed. So that's the first question. And what are they told about being paid for sitting in at a commission meeting?
So, for the record, Lorenzo Calhoun, Director of Human Resources. To your first question, during the orientation with the community engagement liaisons, they are discouraged from having any discussions with other community engagement liaisons regarding the work that they are conducting on behalf of their elected official, as well as they are asked and it is strongly recommended that they do not have conversations with other elected officials as it relates to items that they are working on for their assigned elected official. I literally narrow it down. I said you can talk about sports, you can talk about wardrobes, you can talk about the weather, but I would stay away from any items you are working on for your elected official that may come before this commission. To your second question, which was, remind me, thanks, sorry.
Are they told they can or cannot be paid for sitting in on commission meetings?
At the inception of, or the creation of this position, we had several or two community engagement liaisons who were residents. I reminded them at that time, and I continue to do so with newly hired liaisons, when they are attending meetings, they are on the clock. There's no option to take your hat off and become a resident versus being on the clock, especially if they are asked by their elected official to attend the meeting, they are working and being paid.
Okay, but let's qualify that. You said as a resident. Well, they're all residents.
No, they are not.
Okay. All right, could you repeat that for me then? What you said about if they are a resident.
So if they are residents, there's no way to decipher if they are attending the meeting as a resident, taking their hat off, if they are taking notes, if they are mentally thinking of things that be working on for their elected officials. They are working, they're on the clock. So there's no conceivable way to take off your hat and say, today I'm the resident attending the meeting, versus unless you are not assigning them work, versus you've asked them to come, you directed them to come, they are at the meeting and they are working. So it's a fine line between attending as a resident versus I'm here in my official capacity as a community engagement liaison.
But either way, they are getting paid then.
They should be. If they are attending, they're watching, they should be on the clock.
Interesting.
One in particular who works for you no longer attends the meetings. She was a frequent participant of workshops and our regular commission meetings. She no longer attends.
She may want to talk to you.
Uh-oh. I welcome
Okay.
the conversation.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Interesting.
Commissioner Bolton.
Mr. Calhoun, you made mention of Commissioner Placco's community engagement liaisons attending meetings frequently in the past. Did she turn in timesheets for those meetings?
To my knowledge, prior to her being hired, obviously she would not have had to turn them in, but when she was hired, she stopped attending those meetings, so she did not turn in timesheets.
So that's not necessarily true. Several meetings, and Commissioner Placco can correct me if I'm wrong. She has attended several meetings while she was a community engagement liaison. So you don't have timesheets.
I don't monitor their time, Commissioner.
Sorry. Commissioner Placco says she has never turned in timesheet for attending a commission meeting. However, she has been here while she's a community engagement liaison during meetings. So there is just a little bit of inconsistency with the process, right? So my community engagement liaisons, they don't attend commission meetings. They, are hardly in the office. They comment on special projects. They don't know the other community engagement liaisons. As a matter of fact, one of them had badge issues because he did not come into the building frequently. I'm told one of the mayor's engagement liaisons had badge issues as well because she hardly comes in. So I don't think there should be a misconception of, they're all talking. I don't think that's the case. But we do need to figure out what the issue is with coming to meetings or not as residents. So if you would investigate that for us, for me, provide it to the rest of the commission if it's their prerogative to have that. But I would like to see timesheets for Commissioner Placo's community engagement liaison. And to the extent that there isn't, then I would like you to look into the meetings she has attended and why she has not been paid. Because if she needs to be paid for those meetings, under law, she must be.
Can I make a point of clarification? I think my item is being diluted with other conversations. It's discussion on community engagement liaisons' role in lobbying for the commissioner's agenda items while being paid by the city is my thing. And again, is to get consensus that they forward, none of them will be doing that. That's my item there. Everything else is totally irrelevant, and I think we want relevancy here.
Thank you. So we will refocus it back. This is an item for going forward, and there's a request for some procedures in place regarding that. Vice Mayor, you had the floor.
So first, for the city attorney, was that an appropriate interruption by Commissioner Villalobos?
It's his item.
It is his agenda item. I don't think that necessarily disrupted the conversation was taking place. With that said, Commissioner Bolton has the right to speak whatever he feels is appropriate to this item for the time frame that's allowed for under your rules of procedure.
And Commissioner Bolton was
If he's not already finished.
Okay.
He's already finished. So Commissioner Gelin, Vice
Another
Mayor Gelin.
question. So I think this item was addressed partially at the last meeting. I believe Mayor Gomez went to you for clarification, and you said publicly that this is a public meeting, there's a public item on the agenda. Anyone from the public, including the community engagement liaison, had the ability to speak on any item in the public meeting.
Florida law gives anyone who is participating or present during a public meeting the right to speak to any item on the agenda. I believe that the discussion or the issue that Commissioner Villalobos has raised is whether or not if a community liaison elects to exercise that right, then do they take off the hat of community liaison and wear the hat as a resident, and therefore, for whatever time period that they're participating in the public meeting as a resident, they're not being compensated for that? Or do you all want to just adopt a process or a procedure that you have the right to do so with respect to your community liaisons, that they don't attend, they can't participate? It's up to you. I would also mention that if anyone seeking to persuade this body one way or the other with respect to an item that's on the agenda for discussion and action, under our rules and that are imposed upon us by changes approved by the voters at the county level, that individual may have to register as a lobbyist.
Okay, so for the HR director, so would it be appropriate to just go back to the moments of the meeting and measure the time and remove that time, whether it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes, from the paycheck?
Can you, another point of clarification, I was going to do a presentation regarding this and put the whole thing in perspective. I was trying to avoid all of this here. I wanted consensus that they're not going to be coming up to the podium. City manager says what he said about being a resident. The problem is that I questioned it, the mayor questioned it, and we specifically asked the city attorney, and the liaison specifically said, I am here as a resident. But at the same time, the timesheet says otherwise. So that is really the underlining problem, is they said that, the CEO said, I am here as a resident. And to lie before this commission is very inappropriate. That is my problem. So I really would like to move forward.
So going back to my question,
I really would like to move
Vice
forward
Mayor,
City
with.
let
attorney,
him
he was not
I've
recognized.
been recognized.
Point of
You have not been
clarification.
recognized.
I
You have not
the
been
floor.
recognized.
I have the floor.
You have not been
City
recognized.
attorney, can you clarify?
No, city attorney, you will not clarify right now. Commissioner Villalobos will finish his sentence, and then, because he asked for a point of clarification to take back this matter as this is his presentation on it.
City attorney,
No,
I have access to the city attorney.
but you don't have the floor. You have not been recognized.
Through the chair,
Commissioner
I have-
Villalobos, please proceed.
So my point is,
City
again,
attorney,
Hold on. The rule is that the chair recognizes the speaker, and at that point in time, whoever the chair recognizes has the floor. And
Commissioner Villalobos,
he
please
did not
proceed.
recognize the chair when he made his point of clarification.
Commissioner Villalobos, please proceed.
So again, my point is, going forward, no liaison is going to come to the podium, lie to us about whether they're on the clock or whether they are a resident moving forward. As simple as that. I was highly suggested to avoid all this drama regarding this item, putting people on blast, removing hours and all such things. This is just, can we get consensus to move forward? There are liaisons, whether if they're on the clock, they're on the clock, but they're not going to come here and start lobbying the commission or for their own personal gains. Or if they're here as a resident, they're here as a resident but not on the clock. Basic, that's just as basic as it gets.
The item is narrowly tailored for asking for procedures to be put in place regarding our liaisons when they're on the clock and on whether or not they are to do presentations or speak before us. Any issues with HR that may or may not have been from last meeting, when a person also stated that he was no longer on the clock, was here as a lobbyist, but if the rules of the city state that they have to be paid because they are here, then the city staff will have to take care of that separately. So moving this back along, is there consensus to get rules put into place that address this issue from our city staff to bring back to us?
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
This is an administrative matter that should be handled between the city manager and the HR director.
Passing the buck, yes or no, Vice Mayor, is there consensus in your mind to have policies and procedures put in place regarding liaisons speaking at?
I made my comment. We are policymakers, and this is an administrative function that's handled between the city manager and the HR director.
I want it on the record from herein that any other policy, procedures, and items that have to go dealing with employees of the city do not hereby come back to us, because you've heard it. We're only policymakers, and that is your responsibility. I happen to agree with the Vice Mayor. Commissioner Plaka.
Yes, it should be dealt with by HR.
Commissioner Bolton.
I have a question for the city attorney.
We're in the middle of consensus. We're going to
City
finish
attorney,
off.
When an item comes before the city commission, the speaker or the presenter has time to present, and then the city commission has 5 minutes and then 2 minutes to discuss the item? Is that how it is, or it's not?
Yes, sir.
So to say that I'm bringing forth an item and all I want is consensus and no discussion would not necessarily be right.
I think in somewhat a rhetorical question, but my response would be to you, Commissioner, as well as all the members of the commission, is I think that Commissioner Villalobos' position on this matter is fairly clear.
But would it be
But
right
you
or
all now
not?
you all have the opportunity, in accordance with your rules of procedure, to say whatever you wish to say that is relevant, that's the subject matter of the item of the discussion for, again, the initial 5 minutes, and then second round, I think it's 2 minutes.
Right, so to be clear, presenter has time, presenter has presented, commission member, each of us has 5 minutes. Then if we have additional questions, we go for another 2 minutes. Those are the rules as I have understood it. Is that how you understand it?
That is how I understand it, with the mayor as the chair. Recognize each of you in accordance with that rule in sequential order. Once all have spoken, if someone else wishes to speak, to your point, they then have another 2-minute period. And, at the end of the process, whoever is, brought the item forward can, and properly should, from my perspective, be the last person to say, well, this is what I think, and then it gets placed to a vote.
But if I have an item, I can't just come and say, this is my item. I want consensus, no discussion.
Everyone has the right to be recognized and given the opportunity to speak on any item that's brought forward on the agenda in accordance with your rules.
And may I remind you, the rules also state
Got
that shall address only the topic being discussed.
That's correct. That's how I said that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Your thoughts on whether or not you support or do not?
In the past, when an employee or an elected official,
It's a yes or no.
no, it's not. In the past, when an employee or an elected official has done something allegedly egregious, behind closed doors, HR manager, city manager, an attorney launches an investigation. It doesn't come to the city commission. My idea is, if somebody has done something wrong, follow your own rules, director, launch an investigation, and then have an attorney come back with a report to be used politically. How's that?
So it appears that the commissioner does not support consensus of any changes to the rules. Anyway,
That's not what I said.
well, it was
My
a yes or no
comments are on
answer
the
to
record.
the whether or not you had consensus for changing the rules.
Don't summarize my comments.
Well, Commissioner.
My comments are very clear.
Commissioner, there's nothing further. There's no further discussion. City staff, do you have what you need?
What I heard is that we will, the city management and HR and the city attorney, deal with the community engagement liaisons according to how we see fit, as well as other city employees. And that works for us. We can do that.
Thank you. And you will modify rules and regulations accordingly as is within your prerogative.
Thank you. I was going to say, within the confines of our
Your
policies and
duties.
procedures, and the state law and federal law to that applies. So just want to make sure that our movement forward is to be consistent with our existing policies, procedures, change them if they need to be changed, and to be consistent with applicable state and federal law to the extent that it applies.
And just to further clarify that I don't believe we can call out community engagement liaisons separate and apart from the rest of the city's workforce. Is that correct?
Yeah, everyone should be treated equally with respect to the rule and the policies that we adopt. They apply equally to all employees, subject to, and for the record, I'll say subject to whatever that may also be the subject of a collective bargaining agreement, because that also sometimes modifies those rules and regulations. But as it relates to this particular issue, rules apply evenly to everyone.
Thank you. I believe this is now in city staff hands. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now 12:46. This meeting is adjourned. See you at our next meeting. Thank you.